which I really do believe that this is expertly done stunt casting by Hollywood. But John Leguizamo has no problems with James Franco, but appropriating our stories, no more of that. Alina from Cuba, producer, defends the casting. The more I read into the story, the more to me it seems that the movie's not even about Fidel Castro. It's not. It's about
Alina.
It's about his exiled daughter. So
it takes place in Spain and part of it, right?
So if the movie wasn't even about it, in a world now where every movie is a female lead character, it feels like this movie wouldn't have stood out. But what is a great way to stand out from the pack and get good attention on your project? It's to do stunt casting. And in this case, we're talking about this movie way more than we would if just any other actor had been named for that role right now.
When I thought originally that this was going to be a biopic of Castro, I thought that was questionable because I don't trust Hollywood to make a an inherently political story into an unbiased retelling.
Yep.
But I'm kind of glad that it's about his daughter instead. She is a consultant for the film for biographical accuracy.
That was my biggest thing, was the daughter actually approved of James Franco's casting in this role.
Yeah, but also if you think she has a financial stake in the film and she's, getting paid for it, you don't know what's really going on if there's bias because of her.
Any publicity is good publicity for them at this stage in the hasn't even started filming.
I don't think that you should be directly involved in a biopic about your life.
It does seem weird.
As I said about Madonna, it's weird.
We're going to talk more about that. I kind of the opposite end of that tomorrow with Mike Tyson. But like in this, she has she approved of the casting, and but John Leguizamo takes serious issue with this. Now, this is mainly because I had to and I'm going to try to not sound stupid here, but basically the distinction between Hispanic, Latino, and the fact that Castro has Portuguese or has origins, like his grandfather or something has Portuguese of Portuguese descent.
I mean, that would make sense with his last name.
Yes, and then Franco does as well, so that actually fits for this. So it says in Leguizamo's follow-up post from the original, from his original post, he says, "What you can see below." He explains that he grew up and worked in Hollywood at a time where Charlton Heston played a Mexican, where Eli Wallach played a Mexican, where Pacino played a Cuban and Puerto Rican, when Ben Affleck in Argo played a Latin guy, and Marissa Tomei played a Latin woman. He says, "We couldn't play our own roles," he says to the Tu Wong Fu Thanks for Everything actress Julie Newmar. I don't know if anybody ever saw Tu Wong Fu Thanks for Everything, but yes.
By the way, like that face of like John whatever his name is.
Leguizamo.
Yeah. Like he looks like he's LARPing as a Latino guy.
Do you want to play the video?
We can play the video.
Is it the hat that gets you?
It is the hat that gets me. It's like sideways hat.
Right, look, I got no problems with James Franco, okay? So y'all just calm down. I grew up in an era where Latin people couldn't play Latin people on film, where Charlton Heston played a Mexican, where Eli Wallach played Mexican, where Pacino played Cuban and Puerto Rican, where Ben Affleck, even in Argo, played a Latin guy, and Marissa Tomei played Latin women, and we couldn't play our own roles. Even there was brown face, people painting themselves to look Latin in West Side Story, Eli Wallach and the Wild Bunch.
Do you think you remember being Luigi
I grew up in the era where
in the Mario movie?
They told you to change your name, stay out of the sun, that only white Latinos or white passing Latinos would get jobs.
He must have spent like 3 hours on Wikipedia for all that.
Every time you...
Did you remember that I mean, this was like 2 decades before you were alive, but he played Luigi in the original Super Mario Brothers movie.
Okay.
We've been talking about Ana de Armas playing Marilyn Monroe. Is it weird that it's allowed to go one way but not the other?
No, totally. And I pointed it out. It's really not about representation if Marilyn Monroe isn't represented by an American woman.
Yes. So it is weird that they're allowed to be mad. And like I said, I'm one of the people, like I'm probably less strict on these rules than a lot of other people, because so many great characters that I've seen have been race or gender swapped. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people, but I do care about the hypocrisy of it when people are saying that you can't do it one way but you can do it another.
It depends. Can you do it well?
Yes.
And in Ana de Armas's case, because of her dialect.
I also want to point out here, this is a picture of the two side by side. I know, Mary, you said he kind of looks like. To me, they look a lot alike.
He looks like if Castro grew up on soy milk.
Well, that's all you're going to get now. That's all you're going to get.
So.
I mean, you're growing up. People are growing up at a different time now. And obviously they'll through makeup. It's sad, but through makeup they'll have to make him look rougher.
But it goes beyond appearances. So if Ana de Armas is saying is delivering these lines with a heavy Cuban accent the whole movie, it doesn't let you suspend disbelief.
It'd be incredible if in the movie he's like starting to sound like Scarface. He's like, okay, we're gonna liberate Cuba.
And I want to talk more about what the producer of this movie is. This has been like his passion project for like almost 2 decades.
Really?
Yeah. So it says Alina of Cuba producer Martinez Ofelan. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Responding to Leguizamo's Friday rant, said in a statement obtained by Deadline, "For one, let's take a historical look at true Latinism in today's mass culture of Hispanics, because a territory does not define a person's blood trail. What I mean when I say that is that a Latin means of Hispanic, Portuguese, Italian, or Latin American heritage and roots, all of the branches of the root being Latin. So to me, his statements can create a great talking point for people because his comments represent the confusion and identity crisis in Hollywood right now within the Hispanic community in America who claim to identify as Latin." I went and looked up a bunch of like what Leguizamo said. He said basically only 4% of people on screen right now are Latin. And that number seemed low to me. But then I realized through the stuff that I found before, which was from this website called Zippia, and I've used this before when we were talking about statistics and acting in general. But what it says here is that actually 15.6% of the acting population is Hispanic or Latino, but they lumped them together. It looks like Leguizamo doesn't want them lumped together. Am I taking that correctly?
It seems as though. I want to ask you a question, Brett. Do you think they let me play one of these roles?
Fidel Castro? If
he was complaining about white passing Latino actors.
Right,
though.
that's what I'm saying. So
you're still the problem if you don't have dark enough skin, which is just weird.
And he mentioned, and he said when he was younger that he had to stay out of sunlight so that he wouldn't get tanner for roles. Like that was a problem in Hollywood. One thing they mention a lot is like names, like people change their names. Like Martin Sheen, that's his last name is actually Estevez, but he changed it to Sheen to sound more American for his movie roles. The same went with Chloe Bennett. Her real name is Chloe Wang. She went by Bennett because she felt that it would get her more roles. James Roday, who is from the show Psych, I don't know if anybody here watches the show Psych, he now goes by James Roday Rodriguez because he now feels that it's beneficial. I mean, they frame it as like it's now like he doesn't feel like he has to hide that his last name was actually Rodriguez, but I think that now you could say that it's probably beneficial with all of the fact that so much of the influence in Hollywood right now is being put on the concept of diversity and inclusion, that having the last name Rodriguez would actually help him. And I had no problem with him changing it before to be just Roday if he felt that would help him then. I have no problem with him adding Rodriguez now. I say if you're, it's your profession, you want to make the most money possible, I have no problem with that. I do have a problem with the hypocrisy of like thinking it's okay when you did it when you were younger, but now that you don't have to when you're older, now you say it was bad back then. You played the game.
Right.
Does that make sense? You played the game, accept the game for what it is.
Yeah, and you closed the door behind you.
Yeah. So
I really take issue with this, as you would imagine. Because actors are breaking news. Actors are supposed to play people they're not. I know, shocker. But beyond that, it's there's a lot of things here. For me personally, as the designated Latinx, for me one of the most important things about Latin culture is to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think I can even convey all of my personality and who I am in English.
I mean, that you say that a lot. Like a lot of times, you're trying to explain something to us, and because English is your second language, you feel like it doesn't translate the same way it would, whether because of linguistic challenges or is it emotive that it just doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah, it's some words just don't hit.
Yeah,
absolutely. Some concepts just don't hit. Specifically when describing food, I've noticed that's a big thing. Rice and beans does not sound as good as arroz con habichuelas. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And I don't know his background and of these things, but it just like a lot of what he's saying like sounds like racial purity, and it's like so like off-putting for me.
So this film is going to be in English?
Yes.
And you believe that would take away from the character of the film?
I mean, in my concept, yeah, it would. Like, I would prefer for it to be, you know.
I found this interesting because,
and that's an issue.
As I was looking into Prey, they were people
Yes.
commenting about how they shouldn't have done this in English. They do have a dub that is in, what is it?
Comanche.
Comanche.
I almost feel like that. Like, we're gonna get to that movie, but I feel like the things that about that movie that I had a problem with would have been remedied if I hadn't watched it in English.
That's one of my issues.
They had
too.
a very involved process to make sure their mouth movements were right for the dub to look more realistic.
Yeah. Yep.
But would less people have watched it then?
Probably.
If it had only been in that language,
I mean,
or if this film were only in Spanish,
or if this film cast a less known but more, like you said, I guess ethnically, racially pure person, right?
But
like,
then
to close on my point in that regard is that if you take a look at like family reunions from Hispanic people, you're gonna see like typically like all colors of the rainbow, like so it's like I think like what he's implying is that like. Well, it's understandable that like in the past like roles like would be given to like white presenting people, but I believe like his implication now is like they have to look like him, and it's like, you know, I lived 26 years in Puerto Rico, I look nothing like you, you know. But it's like, does that like take away? Like I don't know what he's trying to say.
Also, like if we were to take it a step further, should anybody that's not from Cuba be playing these roles? Like maybe we shouldn't make the movie at all.
Yeah, and Alina was bragging about how the film has an almost entirely Latino team in behind and in front of the camera, but that doesn't mean that they're Cuban, and it doesn't mean they understand the history or culture of Cuba.
It's pick and choose whenever they want to enforce the rules. Whenever Hollywood wants to enforce the rules. Thank you.
Like, what if a team of a bunch of different European nationalities made a film that was significant to the culture of like Sweden or something? Like, that wouldn't mean that they know anything about it or have a different perspective.
And I want to ask this in like the most sensitive way possible. Is this kind of always proves the point to me that as much as people complain about America, we are almost without trying the most diverse country in the world, right? Like,
absolutely,
without even trying. So is this if we were in a more homogenous, like is this just what we're going to deal with because we don't live in a homogenous culture? Whereas like if for some reason Bollywood wanted to make a Fidel Castro movie, they're going to cast Bollywood actors, and that's just who's going to be there to play him. So this is kind of our cross to bear, because we have encouraged and because we gladly accept and love the diversity that this country has. But then when people turn it around and make it a bad thing, or want to dissect it into you know what I'm saying?
What they want is all of the bragging rights that come with having a diverse population, but none of the natural consequences, which are we work together, live together, and have to produce films together that don't represent just one nationality.
Yep. And that's very, very difficult. I mean, we're seeing that with a lot of like, we need them in front of the we need this group to make this movie in front of the camera, this group to make this movie behind the camera.
Why does it matter who's behind the camera?
I remember when I don't remember, it was okay, when they were making Ali, the movie Ali with Will Smith. I remember that Spike Lee or Spike Jones really wanted to make that movie, and Will Smith said, no, I want Michael Mann to make that movie. At that time, that was the storyteller who he wanted making that film. He didn't care what he looked like, right? I don't think that would happen now.
What year was that?
2000 or early 2000s, 2004 maybe. I'd have to double check on that.
I definitely don't think it would.
No, it would not happen.
Yeah. I guess to be fair, what Leguizamo is saying is that maybe these films wouldn't have gotten enough exposure or viewership if they had casted someone else as Castro, but had they been given the chance to build a portfolio with equal opportunity, then they would have casted Cuban.
Is that just...
I don't know if that's even true, but he's still veering into the territory of just saying overall it's a problem if you cast a white person or even a white presenting whatever that means, person.
Or Jessica Alba, white presenting.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about that recently, how she made a comment where she said these Marvel movies are still very Caucasian. I'm always surprised how how boldly they say this stuff without feeling even the slightest bit of like discomfort at saying something like that. But she says, yes, the Marvel movies are very Caucasian. I said, okay. Like, and then a lot of people in the comments were like, look, you made your career as white presenting and now you don't want to own that. And that's a problem.
Dude, if their favorite influencer was wearing a Klan hat, people would wear Klan hats. Like, it's like...
I don't know about that.
They're so brainless.
I don't know.
They're so brainless and silly. Like...
Yeah, it was 2001 that Michael Mann made Ali. And like I said, Will Smith wanted Michael Mann to make that movie. He did not need somebody else to make that movie because they looked different. He felt that was the best storyteller to make that film.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I get you're being hyperbolic, Daniel. I think you're kind of right.
That they would wear a Klan hat.
Well, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic at all, by the way. I'm being quite literal. I think people like follow trends.
So he points out that he felt like he had to stay, or he was told basically stay out of the. And Hollywood has been exceptionally crappy in the past. And actually, I do believe that of the data that I found that Native Americans are extremely underrepresented in Hollywood. Like, at least according to the data that I found. Like when we were watching
underrepresented
movie,
compared to their population in the U.S.
Yeah, like is that a problem? I can't say. I don't know how many people are actually acting, right? And that's the point of these arguments, is they're kind of unanswerable, right?
They're unanswerable because you can't account for how many of them are interested in doing so or trying to get roles and are not getting them.
Exactly.
It might just be that this population is not interested in being a part of that industry as much as others.
So he says the census came out in 2020, and it said that almost 20% of the population is Latino. And then a couple of years ago, we were only 3% of the faces in front of the camera, less than 1% of the stories, less than 1% of the crew, less than 1% of the executives. That's cultural apartheid, he says.
But that would imply that it's planned and enforced by some party, but it's not.
No. So
you can't just assign guilt and intentions to these circumstances.
Well, it's like we talked about with
you weren't on the inside.
That quote I said about emotivism. They love to assign intention to every action and hold everything in the most negative light possible. So, but I do, when it boils down to it, I think that this was stunt casting, because I also love the fact that he says, I don't have a problem with James Franco. So Me Too is out the window. He doesn't care about Me Too.
Right. I was thinking there's so many reasons you could be ticked about this casting. First of those being James Franco's controversy about, predatory allegations.
Pick and choose where you want to enforce, they say.
My guess is like when this initial campaign of like he's white fails, like they'll move on to the next step.
Well,
because ultimately what they want is like the result.
But they're not going to get it.
No.
And I thought secondly, reason that people would give backlash for the casting is because you're casting someone as an evil dictator, and then I realized because he was a communist that isn't going to happen. No. They don't care.
One more thing about I want to point out a little bit more of what the director, or I'm sorry, what the director of I don't know if he's the director or the producer, Martinez says. He says, I've never met Leguizamo, but felt the calling to address the fact that he's attacking me and my work based on false information because I'm actually not Hollywood, as he's insisted. I was born as a fourth-generation Hispanic from Texas, from the Iberian and indigenous Mexican, and have been the visionary behind this project since its beginning. Moreover, I've spent 16 years developing this around and with the support of Miss Fernandez, so with with Elena of Cuba, and took the time to find a female at the lead that with Cuban roots. So he's attacking the feminine focus of the title unfairly, and that's where I think it comes back to. They're like, this is getting this movie unbelievably extra press, when it would normally, if they had cast the other person that a lot of people on Twitter were suggesting was, how about Pedro Pascal? He's very big right now. But then it would have just been like, oh, Pedro Pascal is playing Fidel Castro in a movie, and they would have moved on. So they're using both James Franco's past with Me Too, and his and the problems that they're taking with his background.
Yeah.
And they're using that as a means to get this movie extra press. Stunt casting.
The way I see, like,
He probably won't even be on screen for very long.
Really? You think so?
We'll see. I don't know how long they'll put him on screen. Like the other actress who's playing Alina's mother, Mia Maestro, she's a great actress, but she's like a TV actress. She's not a film star.
I mean, I'm surprised that they even went ahead with this
to begin with,
because it would frame him in a negative light, obviously, and there are a lot of Marxists in Hollywood.
There are.
The way I see like cancel culture, it's like the analog version of a trending hashtag. And like what actors, when John Leguizamo, did I say it right? Mm-hmm. When they do things like this, essentially what they're doing is that they're posting analogously on a real life hashtag, just so like when people search the trend that they can have any form of virality. Like I genuinely think that 90% of people, when they do this, they truly don't care. Mm-hmm. Like it's really hard to believe that literally all of Hollywood got converted to like this like sociopathy like overnight.
Not overnight. It was always there.
Understood, but it wasn't like as prevalent, and as like they weren't like as like enthused, and that, you know, they weren't like,
well, it wasn't palatable to the outside world, and they've slowly put it into the regular public, and since 2016 that's exploded.
Well, what I'm trying to say is like I don't believe that they see, like I'm having one of these like translation issues. They don't have these beliefs deeply held in their heart, and it's more so as like a public relations move.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.